Hello, everyone. This is Jack with the Book Club from Hell. And before we start this episode, I would like to make a brief announcement. We have chased meaning away. In its place grows the tower, always expanding and leaving blissfully fulfilled employees in its wake. I am a doctor who specializes in souls. A potent advertising slogan leaves ripples in the world of the spirit. Love is remembered. Maybe S was responsible for everything, but who else do I have? Blending Franz Kafka, Mikhail Bulgakov, Jacques Ellul, and Stalker Shadow of Chernobyl, Tower is a search for meaning in a world no longer organized for humans. So goes the blurb for my upcoming novel, Tower, to be released in November 2023 and available on my website, www.jackbc.me. That is www.jackbc.me. Thank you. Jack.
Levi.
The Book Club from Hell.
We've got a Q&A episode because we're currently reading Spengler, and reading a few chapters of Spengler takes more than a week, and so we need to space out episodes between Spengler episodes because we're both getting brain broken by all of his German neologisms rendered into English.
Yeah.
I'm sure all his new words are sort of hard to follow in German, given that he uses them in such strange ways, but it's made even worse by taking it from German into English. That said, I feel like I'm slowly becoming acclimatized to Spengler's moon logic. It's like reading Evola in that I now understand how, I understand the causative mechanism of history, and as such, his work is making a disturbing amount of sense now, viewing everything morphologically and physiognomically. So we've got some questions. Some of our lovely Patreon subscribers have sent in questions, and we're contractually obliged to answer them. So most of these are from J-Man, who every now and then will just question bomb us. Got quite a few from Saint Marzano as well. Shout out to all of the people on Patreon, actually. Shout out to Yutz, Heilich, Nick B, J-Man, Not San Marzano, Supremacy, Abraxas, and at Double Speed. Thank you very, very much. We'll start off with some of San Marzano's questions, because those are less,
because they're more sensible,
more coherent than J-Man's. we need to ease ourselves in with something.
Just on the Discord, San Marzano is just like the adult, the adult in the room, the sensible adult in the room.
Shout out to San Marzano's unborn child, actually.
Yeah, San Marzano Jr. coming along, going to be a good little capitalist.
All right, so San Marzano's first question. Who's the one who came up with the idea of doing the podcast? I think it was you.
Oh, they want some backstory, some lore. Yeah, so at the time, well, we could just give them the minimum answer.
Yeah, it was Levi. Levi's responsible
we could extrapolate a little bit. I'll extrapolate a little bit. So at the time, Jack, so was it 2020?
Yeah.
Late 2020. We were sort of starting to talk about this idea. So Jack and his partner were living in London and I was living in Melbourne, and the lockdown sucked, right? As everybody knows.
They sound so fucking rough in Melbourne.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, yeah, they sucked a lot. And throughout that time, Jack was changing careers into writing. So he's about to, as everybody knows, he's about to publish his first book, self-publish, Tower, coming out soon. And we're going to do an episode on it with the return of the prodigal son.
Of the king, Edward.
Ed. Mr. Ed's coming. Return of the king, Edward. So at the time, Jack was playing around with Substack and some other things. I think, is your Substack still up?
Down.
I'd encourage people to go and find Jack's Substack. Damn. Yeah, anyways, his writing was good on Substack. And I was at uni, but whilst I was at uni, doing engineering stuff, I like to do side projects. I couldn't keep focused on one thing. So I built a number of side project-y things and throughout uni. And yeah, we just wanted to do something to keep in touch, basically, whilst Jack was in London. And one of the things that we came up with was why don't we do a podcast together and let's just play around with that. And our first couple of ideas were let's look for weird ideas on like weird ideas or weird subcultures or something. And if you listen to the first couple of episodes, we refer to it as like Poe's Laws podcast. Then something else. I think we had another name there for a bit.
Are we the crazy ones? I think.
Are we the crazy ones? Which I think we are. And then eventually, like, because we were reading books, I think we both independently said,
let's read Bronze Age Mindset.
Like, to people who asked. Like people were asking us what the podcast is about. And I think both of us independently of one another described it as a book club from hell.
Yeah.
We're like, oh, why don't we just call it that? Actually describes what we're doing.
Yeah, it requires much less explanation than Poe's Law or Are We the Crazy Ones, both of which are a bit too vague. And also just like the Poe's Law thing, the thing about it being hard to tell if something's satire or not on the internet, with almost all of the people we read now, it's just not satire. They're dead serious. So that idea fell apart pretty quickly.
Yeah, even Bronze Age is like, in hindsight, Bronze Age pervert, me thinking that was possibly satire was me just not being involved enough in the internet. He's quite sincere.
Yeah, hence why we want to redo particularly our early episodes, which for a number of reasons I think we would do a much better job of now. We do Bronze Age revisited.
Trash.
I don't know if I can be fucked doing Poseidus again.
No, we don't need to do Poseidus again. We'll do Bronze Age again, but he's got a new book coming out.
Yeah, well, I think it's out now.
New book coming out, or just
I think it is out.
So he just released.
I think it's under his real name as well.
Yeah, so we can do that one. We could re-release or just do like a shorter version of the original Bronze Age one. I think Evola obviously would be the other big one to redo.
Yeah, definitely. Revolt Against the Modern World, I think, would be worth redoing. Also, our audience seems to have an unlimited appetite for Evola. So,
yeah, it's really unfortunate.
No, I enjoy Evola. I just need to take a long break between books.
I'd be interested in doing one of his. He was really into yoga, right?
Yeah, he loved it.
Sort of Hindu stuff. Yeah, so maybe we could do one of his books in that domain. It's a little bit different. Yeah, so that's the origin story, roughly speaking.
Yeah, very basically, we wanted something to do so that we could stay in contact with each other while we were on different continents.
Yeah, and also because Jack and I have been friends for quite a while, and so being on different continents, and also during lockdowns and stuff. But I also think as part of just how would you put this? For Jack, it makes a lot of sense to sort of build up an audience of people who are interested in his things. So as an author, and for me, because I do software engineering and I like building web stuff, it's made sense to learn about the creator economy and start making stuff online and just check out that stuff.
Yeah.
It sort of worked out well from a skill point of view as well.
From a skill point of view, but also temperamentally, both of us like looking into this sort of stuff anyway. We were talking before we started recording, we were talking about future episodes to do, and Levi mentioned that he'd already read the Columbine Shooters Manifesto just offhand.
Yeah, Jack's like, why don't we read Columbine? I'm like, oh yeah, I've already read that. That's cool. We can do that.
There's a lot of temperamental match too with this sort of project.
Yeah.
In an Emersonian sense, we're truly demonstrating self-reliance when we read just pure brain damage literature and then talk about it on the internet.
It's interesting as well because we do a lot of reading on our own, outside of the book club.
Yeah.
Thank God this isn't the only reading that we're doing. And the reading that I tend to do is very science, technology oriented, economics, occasional philosophy. And so it juxtaposes very well against the stuff that we cover in the podcast.
Yeah, what I read is
Rothbard,
much more in line with the podcast, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, and shout out to any dudes listening, which is probably 95% of our audience. Yeah. No, not everyone. I know.
Shout out to any women listening.
I know at least 2 women that listen. So
that's absolutely wild.
um, yeah. One of which is my girlfriend. So
the number of female listeners has, in my mind, just increased by an undefined amount.
Well, does it count if one of the women listens because her husband is our friend and she listens with her husband? Maybe. I guess it still counts. So yeah, if you want to do stuff, maintaining a friendship or making new friends, like picking out activity to do is really good.
Yeah, that's really
doing
good.
A project together rather than just like, I mean, catching up on the phone is always good. Like Jack and I still catch up on the phone, and just to talk or whatever. But having a shared project is also a nice way to maintain relationships.
Yeah, that's also something I found after leaving uni, is that it's easy to let friendships drift apart. I think guys are much worse with this than women. But having some sort of project that can keep you together is really, really good.
Yeah, anything where I don't actually have to make direct eye contact is really good. Okay. Yeah, should we go into the next question?
Yeah. San Marzano asks, are there any books you've been pleasantly surprised with on the show that you thought you would dislike? There are books that I suspected I might like Sun and Steel. And anyone who's listened to that episode knows just how much I loved it. But I really liked that book. And I read a number of Mishima's books on the basis of having really, really enjoyed that one.
Yeah. Mishima was probably the big one.
But I don't know if that completely counts. Because
I was pleasantly surprised by Jack.
I'd like it.
Jack.
the furry
by David
comic.
Hopkins. I didn't hate that. Yeah, I didn't hate that. I found it weird. Excuse me. I found it morbidly interesting.
I found the themes interesting. I just can't get around like the rabbit boobies.
Oh, raw egg nationalism.
Raw egg nationalism. Yeah, I was expecting that to suck, but that was actually quite good.
Oh, Ernst Junger. Yeah, that was crazy. That was a nice surprise actually as well.
I was expecting that to be pretty good though. And actually, like Mishima, on the basis of Storm of Steel, I've gone on to read a bunch of his other novels, which are also good, but there's definitely an Ernst Junger novel. He has basically a style, and all of his books are just like an internal monologue of some disaffected yet outwardly conforming man in a society going mad with technique. Those are his books. Every now and then he'll go into something like War is an Inner Experience. Actually, yeah, with his novels, like he has a style of novel that he does. He also has a style of nonfiction, which is just about the metaphysics of war.
Yeah, those are the ones that I think stood out to me.
Crash, actually, by J.G. Ballard. You didn't read that one.
Was that a solo episode that you did?
Yeah, I would like to redo some of the solo episodes because I don't think they work that well. I'd definitely I'd redo the Crash episode. I loved Crash. I was expecting to hate it, but it's an absolutely fantastic book.
Really?
Yeah. Well, I chose it because I heard it was this book about people having sex with cars. And I thought it'd be terrible, but it was really, really good. An absolutely fantastic novel.
Okay. Okay. I might do that.
Flicking through Can Life Prevail by Pentti Linkola. I wouldn't say I was pleasantly surprised because I'm not going to say I really liked that book, but I was expecting it to be really turgid and quite preachy, but it wasn't that preachy and it was quite snappily written. So it wasn't great, but it wasn't terrible. It was a lot better than I thought it was going to be.
Oh, but he had the caveats like that you were expecting to dislike. I assume that I'm going to dislike all the books that we read. So, with the exception of like Rothbard and Atlas Shrugged, I just assume that it's going to dislike everything.
Actually, Mike Mars books, I was expecting them to be basically 4chan posts, and look, they are poll posts, but they're just better punctuated than most stuff posted on the politically incorrect board of 4chan. So there's that. They were better than I thought they'd be.
Is it still the case that 4chan hates us?
I just don't think 4chan is aware of us. So
that's good.
I don't think that's even something that they consider.
But if they do hate us, I was thinking like if we make enemies on the internet, and 4chan is one of those, I suppose 4chan can take some like pretty decisive action against things they dislike, but
I
don't
still
think they're
just
the worst
don't
enemies
think
in the
that's the
world.
problem. I'd be very surprised if they were even aware of our existence. Even on boards like Lit, which have the most crossover with what we do. Some of the people
Yeah.
on our Discord, I'm pretty sure are Litizens, but yeah, on the whole, I doubt the board is aware of us. Apart from F. Gardner. Shout out to F. Gardner.
Shout out to F. Gardner.
Constantly appearing and arguing for the flat earth theory of the world from a Buddhist perspective and then disappearing again.
yeah. What's funny as well about F. Gardner, because I occasionally watch his YouTube channel just to see what he's up to. And he's still in that penthouse, I'm pretty sure.
I fucking love his YouTube channel. I've watched most of his videos now.
I remember seeing him, he posted a while ago a video of him being like, I've just moved into a penthouse thanks to my book sales. I'm like, I'm
living the dream.
I'm now a famous author living the dream in my penthouse.
What was the video he did, which was the it was talking about like Masonic imagery or something in a Sonic movie? Oh, what was it? It wasn't that, but it was something similarly true. Anyway, if people are interested, I'd highly recommend F. Gardner's YouTube channel at Famous Author.
It's really good.
Yeah.
youtube.com/@famous-author. He has a video 4 months ago saying, I started a literary renaissance and I've moved into a penthouse. Thank you. I bought a
Oh, man.
I bought a penthouse thanks to my successful book series. I wonder if he actually did.
We will never know. I'm inclined to take everything he says at his word, so I'll take him at his word.
Can people please like petition F. Gardner via various social media channels to come on the show? I would love first.
The most straightforward way for that to happen would be for us to petition him through social media channels
on Discord
to come on the show. Yeah. Through the Discord server that we're both part of.
If we put more pressure on him, people on the Discord, send him a message on Discord, and don't be mean, be nice, because he's a nice guy. Even though we trash talked him a lot on the episode, he's actually a really
he's
guy.
Very, very polite,
and that would make the most sense to interview an author. Because we want to start interviewing authors.
Yeah,
that are relevant to the show. So F. Gardner would be really cool because he's got such a funny. No, I won't say funny. He's got a very different outlook on the world to us.
Yes, it's radically different. Okay, what about this? What is a book you've read for the show that you've disliked the most, and why? There are a few books. There's the elevated pantheon of things I've truly hated for different reasons. My Twisted World by Elliot Rodger, in part because of how I read it, because I was going on holiday and didn't want to ruin my week away with Elliot Rodger. So I read the entire thing in like a bit over a day, taking notes as well, which slows down how quickly I read. And so I was just mainlining Elliot and just had vile dreams the night of reading it. And it's so full of hatred, self-loathing, and self-pity that it's an extremely unpleasant book to spend a lot of time with, to intensely read. So I really hated that one. The Beginning Was the End by Oscar Kissmeyert was awful.
Point one, Levi.
I think I've become much more tolerant, or just more desensitized to aggressive pseudoscience during this podcast. But that book is astonishing in both how completely smooth-brained the pseudoscience is. Like, let me offer a retelling of the Book of Genesis in light of the human brain, or the monkey brain eating hypothesis of human evolution, while offering just the most condescending, aggressive, and completely incorrect descriptions of human biology. Not even stuff that's open to interpretation, like just getting basic anatomical facts wrong.
Yeah, there's a profound mixture of arrogance and stupidity.
Arrogance and yet getting things that are just like declarative facts wrong.
Just wrong. Yeah.
I found that very
He's
difficult.
definitely up there.
What about you? Yeah, probably for me, My Twisted World in the beginning was the end. The worst. Feminist glaciology was irritating because it's a way of looking at the world that, just given where I was born, I have a lot of contact with, so I'm particularly irritated by that kind of shit lib. Like racism dressed up as enlightened anti-racism. But that was also really short, so I didn't truly come to hate it.
I got to say, like, if you listen to our early episodes, we'd often say how much we dislike the books, and we've been saying that less, I think, because we've built a tolerance for reading stuff that we dislike. And I used to think, like, well, it still probably is the case that there's sort of an exponential decay function of dislike as a function of time distance from the event of actually having read the book and released the episode. So it's hard to say now in hindsight. The one that stands out, though, yeah, is probably going to be
Dugan. Actually,
Dugan was pretty bad. Dugan, I really actually no. I think Dugan might be.
The translation we had was done by, I think, a large number of probably amateur translators. So some of the chapters were lucid and fine to read, and I really didn't mind it.
Yeah,
and some of them were pure
That's
Slavlish, where I was actually using, like, reading the English word order and then thinking through, okay, how would I say this in Czech? And then working out what they meant from that, because I'm pretty sure they were just using Russian word order and things like that and just slapping it into English. So that made it worse to read because some of it was so poorly translated.
Maybe if I had to pick another one, like definitely Elliot Rodger would be up there. Yeah, he's just such a cretinous piece of trash.
Yeah, he was just a piece of shit.
And the other one that I really disliked, actually, I don't know if it was so much that I disliked the book or if I just disliked the authors, was that Red Pill book that we read.
Oh, Practical Female Psychology.
Yeah.
Yeah, with them.
Just have a profound dislike for.
I think the authors were definitely aggressively pathetic, which made me dislike the book more. They just seemed like such weasels. Just the insecurity saturated each page. Yeah, that was pretty
I don't
bad.
really have a problem with pickup per se. I went through a phase of being into, with some constraints on not being a total piece of trash. I had my when I had my first major breakup to essentially like my current relationship. Had a few years there of being single or dating around and stuff with like some short-term relationships. So I think like when you're in your 20s, Jack can't relate to this because he's been happily married.
Got married really young. Really young.
But I don't know if you remember like trying to pick up girls. Like there is definitely a skill to it, and it's worth like learning some social skills and all that sort of stuff and developing confidence in yourself and yada, yada, yada.
No.
These guys just
what you need to do is to get to 130 kilos with 5% body fat, be unable to even make eye contact with another human being because all you have been doing for the past few years is squats, bench press, and deadlift. That's the apex of human sexual strategy.
Covered in back.
Oh yeah, naturally, because you have to start taking trends. So you've got a fucked up hairline, crazy back knee, gyno, massive mood swings.
Your back looks like the surface of Mars.
Yeah, but you've also got ab veins, so it's okay.
Yeah, you've got varicose veins rolling up the like rivulets
into the Amazon skin looks
up the back of your leg.
Looks like blue spaghetti wrapped in ham. Women love that. Just can't get enough of that look.
Yeah, women really love that shit. They can see how veiny the back of your knee is, and they infer that your dick also must be incredibly veiny and therefore attractive.
And you can't get them pregnant because you've completely suppressed sperm production. It's incredible. There's actually no downside to taking trend for dating. Don't worry, babe. I'm completely infertile. Don't need to use a condom.
yeah, it's totally safe. Also, I haven't been laid in like 6 years, so like I definitely don't have an STI.
Because I've not left the gym for 6 years.
And women don't normally talk to me. You're actually just talking to a sex doll.
This would actually just be the conversation you're having in your head while you're aggressively staring at her across the room.
This is a conversation I'm about to have as she's calling the police.
Yeah, well, you're just giving her laser eyes.
Yeah, so anyways, I will finish this sentence if it kills me, Jack. I understand. I went into it being sympathetic because for all the misgivings I have with the red pill movement and pickup and stuff where it can get quite chauvinistic, and I'm I think like there's an element of I understand why guys get into it, young guys, because they want to have success with women. And then I just read that book and I was like, these guys are so fucking pathetic, and also they're completely stupid.
It's the pathetic.
and you're three divorced dudes trying to give other dudes advice about like how to be successful with women and how to have good relationships.
Yeah.
It's like maybe you guys should rethink what you're doing here before you write a book about it.
I don't think they need to rethink. They need to further overanalyze heterosexual dating. I think if they keep analyzing it without female input, I think eventually they'll get to the truth.
Without any female input, yeah, they can just come to a priori truths about.
I think that's the most important thing to working out how to date women is not to get any female input. I think it's probably a bad idea to listen to what
it's a
women
purely
think of
rational.
Dating. If you
rational.
Ignore female opinions. Just think about game theory. And that's probably how you think
about evolutionary game theory. Just keep on reading more and more books about neo-Darwinism, and eventually
whatever you do,
like
don't talk to
lion.
a woman. I think that actually will hurt your chances in terms of
in fact, and if one does try to talk to you, just
run away. Literally run away.
Neg them and then run away.
Your nose is too big. Start running away.
Yeah, I bet she wants to suck my dick now. Joke's on her.
You'd be prettier if you lost 5 kilos. You shout over your shoulder as you're running away. Dive into some bushes. Yeah. So they gave really good advice. The problem was that the book was just a bit pathetic.
It's just a shame that Jack and I found that book after we were in relationships.
I wonder what it says about me that the misogyny in that book worried me less than just how pathetic the 3 authors were. That was what really bugged me about the book.
I've been thinking a lot about chauvinism and misogyny recently. Because
go on.
Because my girlfriend, I told a very very poor taste joke about my ex-girlfriend in one of the recent episodes, and my current girlfriend listened to it. Just like, no, you left one of the jokes in.
Oh, really?
There were 2 jokes that I made during recording, and I asked you to remove one of them because even like, okay, so listeners, when we record the podcast, I try to. So, like, Jack's responsibility is editorial. So
there are certain things that don't make it into the final product.
But for the most part, we try to leave as much in there as we can, except for dead space or whatever. And I think maybe twice I've asked you to delete something from the recording, like, and that was one of the times because it's just like that joke was just so bad and is not. Like, it was just like, what am I? But one of them, I made 2 jokes in there, and one of them, my current girlfriend was like, "You said this, you made this horrible, like, just completely tasteless joke about your ex-girlfriend." I was like, "Okay, well, fair enough. Let me think about that." Well, firstly, just so you know, I'm not going to apologize.
Well, I think no. So if you think about the game theory of getting a really huge female audience, what do women like? Well, they like being insulted because we've
really
learned that from practical female psychology. So we've just got to lean further into this.
And then I was thinking also, like, just in terms of actual misogyny and chauvinism, like we read some books on here that are definitely in that realm. One of which is the PUA book. And I was thinking, like, where's the line with jokes though? And can people really tell if I'm just being what would you say, a shit poster, just trying to get a rise out of people, versus like legit misogyny, or even like legit, I don't know, like all the other crazy stuff that we read.
I think the line is whether something
assholes.
gets us more or fewer listeners. I'm all for crowdsourcing morality in this respect.
Should we just start being really racist? We should start being racist and misogynistic. Will that help us with our views, or will that hurt our views?
We would probably get a different listener base.
I kind of like the fact that we criticize Red Pill. So I hope that if anybody came to us because they were hoping to get their Red Pill beliefs confirmed, that we dissuaded them of some of those stupid beliefs. So
I think
we're doing all right.
Being in your late teens or early 20s is what dissuades most people from being Red Pill.
Also growing talking to women.
Yeah.
Talking to women should dissuade you of your Red Pill beliefs. having meaningful relationships with women. Yeah. Have you ever heard of this thing called a friend? Try to have one of those. That's a chick.
Well, no, because what about when she starts speaking to you in womanese and reprograms you?
Starts reprogramming you. Yeah.
Yeah, we learned a lot of really interesting things from the Practical Female Psychology episode.
Profoundly stupid.
Yeah, when women use big words when they talk to you, that scrambles the male mind, and you stop being able to think clearly. I don't think I'm misrepresenting their argument either. I think that's actually a fairly accurate presentation of the sort of things that they believe.
Next question. I work at San Marzano Capital. So this is from San Marzano. San Marzano presumably isn't his real name. It's just his Discord handle.
Pretty sure that's his real name. I think he's a bear named San Marzano.
He's a bear named San. And on his birth certificate, there's no first name or last name. It's just San Marzano. Just one name. It's like McLovin. So I work at San Marzano Capital, and you guys are trying to pitch the podcast. What are the future plans for the show, and what are some things you are hoping to achieve in the next year? Where do you see the show at that point, and are you happy with how it's progressing so far? Give us some of those Solana bucks, you little shitcoiner, San Marzano. Don't come at me with those shitcoin bucks. I don't want your filthy shitcoin money. I'd rather be poor.
I, on the other hand, will accept payment in anything so long as it has some value.
No, so the question is, what are the future plans? Okay, let's chop this up into multiple parts. What are the future plans for the show?
Future plans. So we've been talking to each other a lot about future plans, actually. Initially, we were doing this without thinking too much of the future, but we've decided to take it a bit more seriously because a lot more people than we expected are actually listening, and it's fun.
Yeah, and just bear in mind that's not a lot of people. It's not like we're blowing up.
No, it's greater than zero.
But like it's a lot
more than I expected.
It's more than zero. It's less than 1 billion. So we've got a lot of room to grow.
Yeah, until we're covering 1/8 of the human population, we won't be happy.
So at first, as we alluded to earlier in our backstory conversation, we just started this as a way to keep in contact and to do an interesting project together, learn some skills. It's since evolved into a thing that is like quite fulfilling in a strange sort of way. It's interesting to explore new ideas, sort of force ourselves to read things outside of what we might have otherwise read. It's also still good to keep in contact with Jack. We've also had some really lovely interactions with people on our Discord, both in terms of the chats, but also I love getting online and like talking to people on the Discord in our group hangout channel, which I do occasionally, and that's been so cool. Like we live in an amazing time to just be able to connect with other people around the world, like people from England or the US or different parts of Australia or wherever, or even like some people from, I think some of the listeners have been from like Scandinavian countries.
Sweden.
And yeah, just
for some reason we have more Swedish than Australian listeners. I still don't understand that.
It's really cool. So that's been really fulfilling. And then we basically have been discussing like, well, what does the future look like? So at least the way that we're thinking at the moment is that we have like three things to take into consideration. One is that the podcast is like a shared project. So dividing up roles between Jack and I, and then figuring out like how to monetize the podcast, how to grow it, and then essentially splitting the podcast revenues. We don't have any podcast revenues now, but like in the future, we hope to, if we continue the current growth trajectory, we think we'll be able to monetize it and potentially make a living off it. So splitting that, but then even if we don't monetize the podcast directly, having an audience of people that are interested in these things, that like the way that we think and the stuff that we put out, means that we can, even if we don't monetize the podcast directly, that we can sort of parlay the attention into projects that Jack and I are doing. So in Jack's case, it's his writing. He's about to publish his first book and he's got another 2 on the way. And for me, I do software engineering, so potentially like some technology that I could be building. So those are the 3 things, like a Jack specific stuff, Levi specific stuff, and then the shared thing itself, the podcast. Do you want to add anything to that, Jack?
Yeah, we've been considering a newsletter.
Should we be more concrete?
Yeah, newsletter, which would include the notes we've taken
like
on the particular books that we've read for episodes, cleaned up, because the notes that I write for myself are probably not that fun to read for people other than me. But yeah, including those things, and then something about what we're reading at the moment, that sort of thing. So we've considered a newsletter.
Yeah, we're not sure what to do with the... So like with the Discord at the moment, it's like, it's fine in terms of like there's not too many people on it, so it's still good. We don't really want to make it paid because it's good to just not have a barrier there for people to connect with us if they want. Yeah, we'll see. What are some things you are hoping to achieve in the next year? Well, Jack's obviously publishing his book, so if we can...
For me personally, publishing
some sales
stuff
for Jack's book, that would be good.
Yeah, getting sales for it, advertising it, using the podcast, and then using the money from those sales to get an editor for a manuscript I've got, and then polishing that up, selling that as well. That's the main thing I'm focusing on for the next year.
Yeah, and for me, it'll be, there's like basically a web app that I'm building, or have started building, that is relevant to the podcast, and I'll start shilling that at some point. So if I could get that off the ground, and I think like if the 2 of us could basically by the end of next year be able to support ourselves, that might be a little bit ambitious, but like I think being ambitious is probably a good thing. But definitely within the next 2 years, preferably tomorrow. Look, like if we're being honest, like it'd be great to be able to support ourselves like straight away, because like obviously that would be good to spend our time working on something that we're building ourselves. For me, I'm working as well full time, so it's been hard juggling that. So it's mainly around just like growing the podcast and then like figuring out how to make it financially sustainable for us.
Yeah. All right. What about this? Do you both have any regrets with some of the earlier episodes or things you'd like to go back and change? Yeah, a lot. There are just basic quality things with the earlier episodes. In that, for example, I produce the episodes and I just didn't really know what I was doing.
Episodes were far too high quality, and we need to re-record them and make them lower quality.
Make them more black metal.
In line with the rest. Yeah.
I think in some episodes, for example, the episode we did on Revelations, we kind of it was fun for us to record, but probably not that good to listen to, in that we didn't really interact with the text we were reading. We just made jokes for a while.
No.
I don't think that's a very good episode.
2 hours of jokes. There was another episode like that. There was another episode like that as well.
Hammer of the Witches was a bit like that too. I don't think we really talked about the book enough, and more made fun of it.
The text, yeah.
And granted, there are a lot of things to make fun of, but that's easy and not ultimately that engaging. It's I think we're much better when we're actually engaging with the text in a semi-sincere way. Like, we always make jokes about it, but when we're at least making some effort to see the world from the author's perspective. Additionally, I don't think the solo episodes worked that well. I did those basically when we just had to keep up a regular schedule of publishing stuff. And I don't think that experiment worked that well. I'd be definitely open to redoing some of those episodes with the two of us, but it just depends on how much interest there is in those particular books. In terms of redoing
and then I want to do Bronze Age again.
Yeah. Just we mentioned earlier in the episode, there are definitely some books that
people come to the podcast because of Bronze Age. It seems to be something that attracts. He's gotten enough of like a reaction out of the rest of the internet that it's a good source of new listeners. And so putting our best foot forward with Bronze Age would be good.
Yeah, and the problem is that
was literally our first episode.
That was, I think, the first thing we'd ever recorded together as well.
That's literally the first thing we'd ever recorded for the internet. So it sucks. Yeah, the fact that people even kept on listening to us after our first episode is ridiculous.
Is an indictment on our listeners and makes me think less of you.
Yeah.
Okay. Who are both of your biggest philosophical influences, and how do they help you form your worldview today? That's a really interesting one.
That's such a sensible
given
question.
That Levi talks about his every single episode, his answer's probably predictable.
Yeah. Why don't you go first, Jack? It's not super interesting from my point of view.
For me, one of the big influences has been Edmund Burke. So for those who don't know, he was he was Irish, but born in the UK, a Whig politician. Particularly his book, Reflections on the Revolution in France, which was written about the French Revolution, but before the terror occurred, has been really formative on my thinking. His basic thesis in it being that societies are extremely complex, cultures are extremely complex, and required by humans to contextualize their actions and to feel meaning, to restrain our worse impulses, like our capacity for violence, our avariciousness, and to bring out the better parts of us. And just because certain cultural forms might not have an immediately apparent role doesn't mean that they're not necessarily doing something important. And so going into society and rationally reorganizing it, you can't see the quotation marks around rationally when I say it, but they're very much there. Rationally reorganizing society almost inevitably involves severely fucking up something really, really important within that society and within that social context that we exist in. So Edmund Burke has had a really big impact. Jacques Ellul, particularly the book The Technological Society, has had a really big impact on me. So particularly looking at technology as a force that remakes humans. So it's not unidirectional, that human beings have ideas and then instantiate them in the world as technologies. Those technologies also dramatically affect us and how we live, how we think, how we interact with each other. While particularly the causative mechanism that Ellul in that book proposes for technological change and the technicization of society, I don't think is true. I think he gets enough things right to make that book really, really worthwhile.
And we might do that book on the show.
Yeah, I think that book would be really, really good to do. So I liked it a lot. Who else? You can talk while I think of other people who've had a really big impact on me. I guess actually it's not philosophy in terms of literature, because I spend a lot of time reading fiction, and I still read more fiction than non-fiction. But I guess it's a measurement problem in that this podcast might give the impression that I only read non-fiction. The Master and Margarita by Mikhail Bulgakov has been a really big influence.
Really? Yeah, right.
It's a really, really beautiful story, but also within the context of Russian language literature, it's particularly interesting because so much Russian language literature, the meaning, the characters in those books oftentimes find meaning in their punishment and atonement. So if anyone has read anything by Dostoevsky, they'd probably recognize that. Whereas in this case with Master and Margarita, I know that Bulgakov was from Ukraine, but he wrote in Russian, hence why I say Russian language. With this, it's unusual for Russian language literature in that there's this real sense of liberation within it, as distinct from accepting punishment, and so that was really exciting. Kurt Vonnegut, I'd say his worldview is a lot more pessimistic than my own, which might have something to do with getting firebombed in Dresden, but that's definitely had a big impact. Steppenwolf by Hermann Hesse is a really, really beautiful novel that had a big impact on me. Anyway, what about you? I'll think of more non-fiction things. So I feel like this question refers
how did
non-fiction.
How did Steppenwolf influence you?
Have you read that one?
The beauty of the... No, I haven't. I've read Hermann Hesse's stuff, some of his other stuff.
A lot of it is the beauty of it, and this sense in the book of it begins in a very, very middle class social environment, and gradually the layers of mundanity are stripped away, and it becomes more and more supernatural. And so demonstrating that there is that feeling that there is much more to the world than your everyday life might suggest. It's hard to give specific examples from literature as to the lessons they've taught you, because if the authors could sum up what they were trying to say in a few sentences, then they probably would have done that rather than writing a novel to convey an idea.
Who are both of your biggest philosophical influences, and how do they help you form your worldview today? I was talking to one of my friends recently, trying to explain. I was talking to him about property rights and this sort of thing. And his
it's highly unusual for Levi, if anyone's wondering.
my friend is like Australian, but like non-Indigenous Australian, and from like a family that does all right and all that sort of stuff, like has a house and stuff. And I grew up Aboriginal, as I've mentioned a number of times on the show, but raised in like Sydney, which is a very different experience being raised Aboriginal in a place like Sydney compared to say like the Western Desert or like the Northern Territory or something. Like when I go to other parts of the country, like even though I've got brown skin and stuff, like people, I can easily pass as like something else. Like people ask me if I'm Brazilian or ask me if I'm like South American or something like that when I'm even just in Australia, kind of like racially ambiguous. And when I go to other parts of like the country, to other Aboriginal communities, if they're like, because I've got mixed background, like European as well, if they're like people who have essentially like all Aboriginal heritage, so they look like like the classic Aboriginal person, like is on like the $2 coin or whatever, and they'll even like refer to me as like Balanda, like in I think it's Yolngu. Yolngu is one of the tribes or the nation groups up in the Northern Territory, and they call like Yolngu. Don't quote me on this because I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure Yolngu just means like roughly people, and Balanda just means like other people, and they often call white people Balanders, but they also refer to like people like Aboriginal people like me as Balanda as well. So to them, I'm just a Balanda, whereas like down where I'm from, we'd refer to like white people as Gabars, and they're the Gabars over there, and we're the blackfellas. And so I had this like, why am I talking about all this sort of stuff? Because a lot of the stuff that I rant on about is like about like Popper or like property rights, Ayn Rand stuff or Rothbard stuff, is like stuff that I'm learning explicitly. And I was explaining this to my friend who comes from a white Jewish background, like hey, there's a lot of stuff that I think that you actually like take for granted around like property rights and understanding of property rights in the Western sense, and like institutional roles of like these X, Y, and Z, and like the government and stuff. My family and the community that I grew up in didn't have that sort of relationship of like the police weren't a good thing in our lives. Like, you call the police because you want them to come over to your house. I don't like the police. Like, my experiences with the police were all bad when I was growing up. I don't want to have anything to do with the cops. And like, my relationship with the state has never been a good thing to me. The Australian state has always been a thing that's been like, like, you showed up on my country and like took our land and then made us sing your anthem, and you brought your religion here. Like, and so I've always had this like mixed relationship with like Western culture of like being very deeply cynical of it. But then learning about like, in particular, Popper, Hayek, von Mises, Rothbard, Ayn Rand, and seeing those Europeans talk about these things like democracy and property rights in the context of like fighting against fascism and socialism in the 20th century, I said to my friend, like, you learned these things implicitly through your culture and through like your family, and just like is like, it's like when a native English speaker uses correct grammar, they do it, but they can't necessarily like, it's inexplicit knowledge. They can't necessarily explain to you why it's like that. But then you talk to somebody who's like learnt a language, learnt English, they come from a different language and they've learnt English really well, and they actually on some level know English better than a native English speaker. That's almost how I feel with like property rights and democracy and stuff. Because even when I was younger, I remember getting into an argument in high school about like, property rights don't exist. Like, this is a fiction. This, like, what is, like, how can you say that you own land? Like, at the very most, like, you're custodian over a piece of land. How can you own it? Like, it's a giant piece of land. What do you mean own? And so all the stuff that I go on about in the podcast is like me almost like going through the process of like learning English as like a second language or something, and then trying to like learn it explicitly, which is kind of weird because, I always like went to university and stuff in Australia. So I suppose to some degree there must be a degree of like inexplicit enculturation that I've had, but also I feel like a lot of it's been explicit. So that's an extremely long-winded preamble to the question that I'm about to get into. Direct response to the question,
that's really
which is say
context.
like a lot of the philosophical influences I've had in my life are like their philosophies when I was younger that aren't like, there isn't a philosopher that I can point to. It'd be like some elder in my community or something, like cultural, like, yeah, this is how we do things, and I can't point you to a book about how things are done. And that's fine, like, so like a good example is like my deep cynicism of the state is like, well, why would you trust the state? Because in my family, like, the New South Wales state came around to our communities and took the generation above me, like, took our children and took them, if you were mixed race, you would be like the generation above me and the generation above them. So it's only 2 generations ago. It would like come along and take kids like me, mixed race kids, take them out of the care of their Aboriginal family and put them into state care and make them wards of the state. So I was like, I've always had this like anti-state thing, because to me, the state was the sort of the institution that came along and fucked up my community. Like, so why should I like them? But now I've got like the philosophical like articulation to put words to my deep resentment towards the state of New South Wales. But when I've grown up and like I'm reading all this philosophy and stuff, the biggest influences on me of late in the last 10 years have been obviously Karl Popper, and then sort of adjacent to Popper, or is David Deutsch. Now, David Deutsch, the way that he puts it is, he says, to quote him, he says, all of my work is merely a footnote to Popper. And to be fair, like, Popper wrote a lot of stuff, but Deutsch made some really, really important innovations on what Popper did. And to me, like, there's a moment in different fields where like a philosopher, a thinker comes along and creates like, this is a watershed moment. So like Charles Darwin, watershed moment for biology. Watson and Crick, watershed moment for molecular biology. And the watershed moment would be like Newton or Einstein in cosmology. And in epistemology, which is like the study of knowledge and how it grows, Karl Popper is that person. Karl Popper is the person who like took us out from like, we had like people like Descartes and Hume, Kant, and they were all dealing with some like really difficult problems, and none of them really like solved those problems. And then Popper solved them, and Popper solved them, and then we started making progress in epistemology, and he refuted like a whole bunch of misunderstandings in probability theory and like Bayesian epistemology. He refuted a bunch of stuff that like now like the objectivists and Ayn Randian people talk about around, like they call themselves neo-Kantians, but really Popper is the neo-Kantian. He innovated on Kant and took it further, like, and all these issues that Popper solved, and it affects the way that we do science, and like it is what scientists are doing. Like he's explaining what scientists are doing, how we're creating new knowledge. And Deutsch and people like Lakatos and Chiara Marletto have like taken Popper's work further. And I've kind of obsessed with Popper because like it's like he made progress. When you read Hume and you read Kant and all these people, I get this sense of like, okay, but it's like the ball stopped moving for some reason in like the 19th and 20th century. And then it doesn't get until Popper, and then it starts moving again. And the main reason why I think it moves is because his philosophy of knowledge is really the only one that confronts error as an important part. You have to like deal with the question of like, well, how do we make progress despite making errors? And it's almost like people like in other philosophers, almost like take Ayn Rand, for example, objectivism. Like Ayn Rand almost doesn't want to like admit that you can make mistakes. Like it's really weird.
Which if you read her mistakes are really interesting in that it's either you are an objectivist and that turns you into like John Galt and you simply do not make mistakes, or you are not an objectivist, in which case you are just incapable of being correct on things.
Yeah. And so that's not well, one, it's just a false explanation of the way the world works. But two, what other influences have been? So why is this important? Like the Popper thing is important because like so how do I put this? In the future, if we keep on making progress, we will have a physics of knowledge. And when we have a physics of knowledge, we'll be able to create knowledge, not deterministically, but at such a high rate of throughput and so methodically that we'll be able to like transform the world exponentially faster. And we won't be able to get there unless we have a theory that actually explains how it is that knowledge is actually exists in the universe. And in order to do that, you have to kind of like look at knowledge as abstract from people, or like abstract from humans. And a lot of the other theories of knowledge, there's kind of like this implicit like, oh yeah, it's this thing that like humans interact with, which is true on a sort of surface level, but a theory of knowledge should also be able to explain, say, knowledge in the biological world. And it should also be able to explain like how computer science algorithms work. And it should also be able to explain like how an alien civilization creates knowledge. You know, it should be abstract. It should be a claim about the way the world works rather than about just the way the human mind works, which is a parochialism, to use a Deutsch phrase. It's parochial. To think of knowledge as just a human thing is a parochial error. And yeah, so that's been a huge Popper and Deutsch's thinking has been the biggest influences on me. The other one that's been a big influence is obviously von Mises. Von Mises and like Rothbard have been really big in terms of property rights, because I think, and Ayn Rand to a degree as well, like basically it's kind of, and I think it'd be worth like reading some Hans Hermann Hoppe, but because I think he goes into this more, but like I'm pretty sure that like a lot of the other things that we think of as important rights and freedoms are actually direct consequences of property rights. If you're, say, for example, one which kind of got me kind of, because I always have been big on freedom of thought and expression, like
Mm, mm.
Well, actually, like if your body is your property and you're free to do with it what you want, then it's within the ethics of property rights. Like freedom of speech is actually just a consequence of having property rights over your own body.
Yeah. Do property rights apply? So they apply to external objects. Do they apply to your inner experience as well? Yeah.
Well, so Hopper takes.
I'll
I mean,
definitely
this
have
is
to
why I've
think
been
about
reading
that.
Hopper.
Yeah, yeah.
Popper says the first form of property is your own body.
Mhm.
And if your body isn't your property, then it has to be the property of somebody. And if it's the property of somebody else, then you're a slave, basically. Like somebody's going to make a property claim on your body. And it's either you or it's somebody else. And if it's not you, then you're a slave. So, yeah, so that's.
I can't sell one of my kidneys for a new graphics card.
But yeah, but the fact that you can't means that you don't
Yeah.
have full property rights in Australia over your own body. Yeah. So like, yeah, those have been big ones.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I actually see like a lot of the historical stuff that my family and community went through, like having land removed or like having their children removed or like having their ventures being like forcibly disbanded by the colonial or state governments throughout Australian history, like as actually like they can be pretty coherently just framed as violations of property rights. Like this the British colonialists just came in and just violated, just went, nah, you guys don't have property rights. Like property rights over your bodies, property rights over your land, property rights over your ventures, like yeah, so forth. Yeah, so that's been really weird actually, like learning that stuff. The last other big intellectual influence that I will note is I can't point at a specific philosopher, but learning about complex adaptive systems in when I was doing my engineering studies, we modeled environmental. So like the question is like, can you model the relationship between like the different populations of different species within an ecosystem computationally? And how would you do that? Would you model it with like linear equations? Would you model it with something else? And if you get into it, like complex adaptive systems basically like overturns the way that you would kind of naively model a lot of things and think through a lot of like situations. So complex adaptive systems are basically like any systems where you've got like lots of interacting parts where they're fairly heterogeneous and there's a large number of the parts. And you get these. So a good example of that would be like ecosystems, economies, communities, but even like a fairly simple system would be like a flock of birds. You get these like murmurations, these like patterns that the birds are forming in their flocking behavior, which are really beautiful and amazing, but they're essentially impossible to predict. But you can kind of simulate them, and you'll get these patterns that have the same kind of structure to them in the evolution of the system over time. But you can't actually, because they're chaotic systems. So chaos just means that like the system is sensitive to initial conditions. So even a small change in the initial conditions of the system will lead to that change will become amplified over the evolution of the system. If you run those sorts of chaotic simulations, you'll never be able to predict a particular flock of birds, like what will the murmuration look like next. But you'll be able to create things that look like them. And so when you apply that thinking to like the economy, which is just profoundly more complex, just so incredibly complex, that to me, it's like the idea, as Jack was saying, of like rational planning of the economy or like a society, like quote unquote rational, just flies in the face of all of the findings of complex adaptive systems. It's just profoundly ignorant for people to come along and say, we're going to create this policy that achieves this social outcome, as if there's going to be no other consequences except for the one that we plan and expect. That must have been like a 10-minute rant. Sorry.
That was a good answer. That was a high yield question. We've got the last question from San Marzano, which is, why is San Marzano the best Discord member, and how did he get such cool and wise opinions? I think to an extent
that's a really good question.
Yeah,
maybe the best question.
Maybe the best one. So we'll spend the next 4 hours going over this.
Well, first and foremost, he's a capitalist pig. Oink,
more
oink.
often than not, sending messages on Discord from his money cave is, in his defense, probably the most mature member of our Discord server. The most adult one.
Is actually just a very sensible person.
Yeah.
Just nice. I mean, I also do love the shit talk on the Discord. But to occasionally have somebody say something sensible is nice.
Speaking of sensible, do you want to start J-Man's questions? Oh, yeah. And actually, San Marzano also gave a shout out to names as part of his questions. Okay. Or are these? Oh, no. These are bizarre San Marzano questions. Okay. We've still got San Marzano questions. It's book club from Hell Street Fighter, Jack versus Levi. You both pick an author from the show that you have to fight the other's author with. Who are you picking and who's winning? Okay, I mean, Ernst Junger, definitely. I expect we're both going to pick Ernst Junger because I don't know who else would be able to beat him. It depends to what extent you take the author's claims as to their own abilities seriously. So if you believe that Ilona Selke is able to shift between dimensions at will, then I can't think of a more powerful being than Ilona Selke. If you are unconvinced by her claims, then the man who survived the First and Second World Wars and lived to the age of 102 is probably your best bet to win Street Fighter. Valerie Solanas was an absolute maniac, so she would be pretty frightening, but I still think Ernst Junger would get the upper hand, given that she tried to kill people but didn't manage it, whereas he killed a lot of people. He's got a lot of experience.
Yeah, so if you're actually talking about like the actual person as opposed to the claims about their supernatural abilities,
it's a Junger.
Yeah, I'll just choose Ernst Junger. Junger versus Junger.
Yeah, hands down. There's no competition.
He's literally like Terminator, like
he is the
T-800.
Yeah. He just keeps going.
Who would win, Ernst Junger or Jack? Ernst Junger. Who would win, Ernst Junger or Levi? Ernst Junger.
Who would win, Ernst Junger versus Ernst Junger? I think they would freeze in this state of inner bliss, meeting a worthy adversary and becoming ontologically transformed as a result. If they squared up against themselves, they'd both just sit down and start churning out philosophical tracts on what they'd just encountered.
But just to keep things interesting, I would put Mishima in there.
Yeah, he'd be pretty good. I mean, but he couldn't really fight. He looked really good.
Is this a fist fight? Is it a fist fight, or do they get like their weapons?
Well, yeah, that's the problem.
I think Junger would still win, regardless.
He'd still win.
He would just get a machine gun and start lopping some granades.
Grenades,
you know, those like bauble grenades and mortar shells. And Mishima would just be running around with a katana.
Wait, no, he'd be posing for photographs with a katana.
Should we move on to the next question?
Yeah.
You have no money. Well, that's not really a question. That's just a statement of facts.
I feel personally attacked.
No, you have no money. You're behind on your rent/mortgage. You're assuming that we've got mortgages, mate. Behind on your rent. You have no money and you're behind on your rent. All right, get to the question, fella. Which author from the show are you picking to help you get on your Sigma hustle grind set to pull some funds together? Who are you picking and how are they getting the money? Who's the most rat-cutting bastard? Yeah, probably
Ayn Rand, as much fun as I make of her, did come to the United States from Soviet Russia, ended up making money, I think writing screenplays, and then published books, made a bunch of money off those, got well known enough to form her own ring of like objectivist sex pests who all just wanted to rim her at command while discussing objectivist philosophy that she wrote. She did pretty well. As ridiculous as
She's
her
pretty
life
Sigma.
story is, it is also a pretty good demonstration of concept or proof of concept that she knows how to
She
stack
did live that
sats.
objectivist life. She lived that objectivist
Yeah, she did her
life.
best. So she'd be
And
pretty
yeah,
good.
I think she'd like Bitcoin as well. So
The
Probably
question
Ayn Rand.
then is, do we need to balance their ability to make money and get famous, which certainly she could do, with their reliability as a business partner? Because I also expect that she'd sell you up the fucking
'Cause
river
she'd
in a
fuck you.
second
she would fuck you so hard
if you
yeah.
just
See,
didn't
that's the-
sexually pleasure her 12 times a day.
yeah. She starts pimping you out to all
Yeah.
of the objective
To the rest of the circle.
Yeah, see, I guess if you're going to swim with the sharks, prepare to get eaten, right?
Yeah, yeah. So she might almost be too Sigma,
yeah.
just too optimized. So who's someone who's less optimized? So, okay, so what about William Rees-Mogg and James Dale Davidson? They can both make money. The sovereign individual was basically the top of a sales funnel to get you into buying their sovereignty services that they advertise at the end of the book.
And they
knew how to make money.
So yeah. Like,
but would they also shaft you? What about Don Paris PhD and Ilona Selker? Because they also not only do they know how to make money in conventional business terms,
but
they also
dumb
know
enough
how to
that
make
we could
money
shaft them
using the SE5.
And we could
they
shaft
might be
Ilona.
They might be the sweet spot of being sharks, but just like little reef sharks, not a great white or something like that.
No, they're dolphins, and dolphins
was.
rape sharks.
That could be dangerous as well.
Dolphins are dangerous. I don't fuck with dolphins. Yeah, probably. Look, if to take this question somewhat seriously, yeah, probably F. Gardner, because that guy's got a penthouse from his book sale, so he knows how to fucking fuck you up.
He's a famous author.
Okay, one author. Next question. One author from the show is joining the Discord. Who do you want it to be, and how are they interacting with people on the server? It can't be F. Gardner, because we know what that's like. Constant shilling of his books on YouTube. Okay, so other than F. Gardner, and he's already joined the Discord.
Are they allowed to be dead? Do they come back to life?
Yeah, let's say it
can be any of them. It also depends on what we want, how fun we think they'd be, whether we think they would be good for audience growth. Again, Ayn Rand knew how to build an audience. I'm sure she would also be completely obnoxious if she were given access to the internet.
I would take Yavin.
Yavin would be good. Yavin would be very good. Yavin, if you're listening,
yeah, Yavin would be really good.
Join the Discord. It's
in fact,
I don't really know what we have to offer you, but yeah, come on the show.
Yeah, Yavin would be great. I think he's legitimately
Curtis Yavin would actually be
legitimately strange enough, and like he's got his own kind of like he's what would you say he's got his own kind of like charisma, you know, like he knows how to hold a conversation, hold an audience.
He's got weird charisma, but he definitely has charisma.
He's got that tism charisma, the strong tism charisma.
What about Bap?
Bap. Oh yeah. I don't know. Yeah,
is the obnoxiousness too? No, I'd prefer Yavin, because Yavin's definitely obnoxious, but he's obnoxious in a way that
like
we could definitely appreciate.
Is aligned with our obnoxiousness.
yeah. Okay, yeah. Curtis Yavin is what I'd say.
For sure, hands down.
He can become the new F. Gardner.
You can
spam us with flat Earth explanations.
You can revive one dead author from the show. Which author would provide the most benefit to society if they were alive? None of them.
Yukio Mishima to help revive the aesthetics movement.
He'd be a good leader of getting jacked.
Yeah.
Genuinely, like if I actually answer this question properly, either or both Rothbard and Ayn Rand. I think if Ayn Rand could settle down her like obnoxiousness, like which I doubt she would.
That's not possible. That's part of what makes her Ayn Rand.
Ayn Rand, yeah. But yeah, Rothbard probably like is super important. But I also think that I think that like people don't appreciate just like how socialist the West is, and we need less socialism. And like Rothbard / Ayn Rand would be good to advocate that. Legitimately good for the world.
You both have to choose an author from the show for the other person to live with for a year that they would hate to live with. Who are you picking for the other person? There is
Oscar Kismath.
The difficulty in this question lies in narrowing it down to one person. Because there are certain people like Valerie Solanas that I think would pose a genuine threat to Levi's safety if she would live with him for a year. So, hate to live with in the sense of constant fear and never being able to go to sleep or turn your back on her. That would be pretty bad.
You just get knifed.
Elliot Rodger.
Oh,
because
God. Well,
you'd
that's
probably end
also
up
a
murdering
legitimate
him,
threat
actually.
to your safety. Because he
did. He
kill
murdered his
roommates.
housemate. So
Yeah.
So you'd have
he
to
was
kill him
legit.
first.
Okay, let's assume that you survived the year. So they're not. They're not
so
able.
you're
to,
invincible. You've got God
They're not
mode
going
on.
to kill you. Yeah,
Yeah.
but they're just really obnoxious. You've got to put up with their shit.
Elliot Rodger still, even without the getting murdered part, would be absolutely awful to live with.
Yeah,
Because for example, with a bunch of the shit posters that we've covered, I feel like if you get them away from Twitter or their particular platform of choice, they could actually be interesting people, or at least not completely obnoxious. Which rules out like BAP, Mike Marr, Roaring Nationalists and things. I expect those people in person are fine. So it wouldn't be them. Oscar Kismayer.
We assumed that this was to punish the other person, but it's not actually in the question. Oh no, it says hate to live with. Yeah, okay, sorry.
Okay. So we're trying to give them.
No.
Okay.
We're trying to make the other person miserable. For some reason.
All right.
Yeah, Elliot
Can't be
Rodger
some-
would probably. The only other.
Oh, what about
thing that
Big Lenny? I mean, okay, we haven't covered Big Lenny, but we did claim that
But
Big
it
Lenny was
is-
Grigna from the Eye of Argon, and so Big Lenny counts. Have you seen that video of Big Lenny's house?
No. Is it
Holy
disgusting?
shit.
Is he a hoarder? I bet he's a
He's
hoarder.
just an everything. It's just
Everything.
filthy. It's absolutely repulsive.
Yeah, no shit.
Big Lenny would be terrible to live with. So Big Lenny's on the list. Big Lenny, Elliot Rodger, Oscar Kismayer. Oh, what about the... Okay, so these guys come as a trio, the people who wrote Practical Female Psychology for the Practical Man. You have to live with all
you have to
three
live
of
in a
them.
share house. A
that-
bro share house in like, I don't know, LA or some bullshit. Like-
That might be the worst, actually.
So obnoxious. So
Oh
obnoxious.
my God.
Just hang out with the boys, go pick up some bitches.
Except they're all like
Go down to-
45. They're all still 45 and talking
Washed
about
up.
picking up bitches.
Drinking Bud Light and
Yeah.
not talking to women.
Yeah, actually, that
Yeah.
would be...
That'd be
There would be a real danger of me going to prison for premeditated murder. I would say there would be actually a 100% chance of me decapitating them in their sleep.
Yeah. I was going to say, like, it would be pretty tough to live with Don and Ilana, but I actually don't think it would be. I think it'd be a bit weird. I think they're probably actually...
It'd be
pretty
weird,
nice
and they
people
would
to be around.
definitely try to sleep
It'd be a
with
bit
you.
weird.
I still can't
You mean-
accept that their dolphin viewing business is not a swinger resort in Bali. There's just no chance.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think if I actually just wanted to punish Jack, I would make him live with Elliot Rodger, though. I think that would be...
Yeah,
genuinely
Elliot
the
Rodger.
worst.
Yeah. Elliot Rodger.
Yeah, and the thing is, I think Jack would like living with Ted Kaczynski in the woods.
Ted, you could talk to Ted. I mean, look, I couldn't bring my gaming PC.
He's ranting, whilst he's
Obviously.
packing his pipe bomb into a fucking package, mailing it off.
I'm sure me
Yeah,
trying to
look at
sign
it.
up to the Counter-Strike 2 beta would really set him off, but
Yeah.
he's not the worst person you could live with.
Next question. There are
Okay.
16 digits on the back of your credit card. What are they? Yeah.
I can't
1, 2, 3,
remember
4,
them.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Thanks a lot, guys. Love the show. Shout out names. I miss him. Yeah, me
None of the
too.
names. Okay, J-Man.
J-Man questions. Are we going to
Tips
do all
/
J-Man
tricks
questions?
for reading more.
Yeah. Why not?
It's actually a really useful
Oh,
question.
wow. Oh my God. J-Man asked an actual question.
Yeah, this is. Don't get
Shout
used
out
to
to
it. This is
J-Man.
probably the most coherent question he asked. I find setting a time each day that you read really, really helps because it's higher effort than plenty of other activities you do outside of work and stuff like that. And as such, unless you're deliberately trying to do it, it's way easier just to like scroll on your phone or something like that you're not actually enjoying and doesn't really add anything to your life but passes time. So setting aside time each day that you're going to read for, I found having a few books going at once rather than one book is good because if you're reading just one book and you really don't feel like reading that, then you're liable not to read that day. Whereas if you've got 4 or 5 books going at the same time, then there's always something that you want to read, and that's good too. Restricting when you game or go on YouTube or Twitter or whatever else you waste time with, that's pretty good. Restrict it to the weekends, for example. So you remove sources of entertainment that aren't reading. That's also helpful. I'm not sure, like I have no idea if it's scientifically backed up, but listening to white noise or something like that while I read, I find is good. It just helps me concentrate. What about you? You're muted, by the way.
God damn it, man! I wish you had heard that. It was an extremely profound and concise response, but I, for the life of me, can't remember what I said. You're just going to have to go about. Sorry, but it was a world-changing response. So, legitimately, tips and tricks for reading more. So,
actually, sorry, just one more thing: practice. Reading's a skill, and the more you do it, the better you get at it.
Yeah. Sort of echoing what Jack said, maybe in slightly different words. So the first thing you want to ask yourself is why you're reading what you're reading. So you should definitely have some part of your reading schedule that you're just reading for enjoyment, so that you're always in contact with just the pleasure of reading something that you enjoy. So it doesn't matter what it is. High literature, low literature, fiction, non-fiction, poetry, just read something. There's a nice saying that I like, which is read what you love until you love to read. If you just read enough, eventually you'll just start reading stuff outside of what you originally were reading for. Then when it comes to reading things that are hard, that you find hard, say, for example, like there's certain like computer science things that I don't find particularly hard to read because I just find it interesting. Whereas somebody else might find them difficult to read. But then say some things that I find difficult to read, other people won't find difficult to read, but not because of the necessarily like the content, not because of like some innate factor of the content, but because of like whether or not you personally find it difficult because it's boring or because it's not really what you're interested in. If you have to read something like that, like force yourself to for class or whatever, setting a timer, just being like, I'm going to read for half an hour. Just do the half an hour thing, Pomodoro, or an hour. Sit down with a coffee, like make everything else nice, like go to a cafe or whatever, and just sit down and do your half an hour and get through it if it's hard in that sense. If it's also if it's like an easier read and you can read it. So one mistake that I see people making is they try to read hard things at night before going to bed. And that's a mistake. So like when I recommend, say, The Beginning of Infinity, which most people find a difficult read, it's quite dense. And I've read it like 3 times now, I think. And I like when I go back to it, I've always gotten something out of it again and again. And there's a lot of insights packed in there, but it's such a dense book that like if you're trying to read that before bed, just like it's in one ear out the other and it's hard to read. Like if you've got a legitimately dense book to read that you're getting something out of, say a philosophical book, read it first thing in the morning. Don't read it last thing at night. read it as like your way to wake up. I find that reading as a way to wake my brain up in the morning. So like go to the cafe, have a coffee, read a hard book for like half an hour and then get into the day. Like that's a great way to start your day. And the last thing that I'd say is, again, kind of echoing what Jack said, don't feel as though just because you've started a book that you have to finish it or that you have to keep on
Yeah,
reading
that's a
it.
good one.
You can let go. That's like just a totally irrational standard that for some reason people think that I've got this book, I'm going to finish it. That's bullshit. Who gives a shit? Nobody cares. Nobody even cares if you've read whatever book. Like, it doesn't matter. And if you're doing that to yourself, it's completely irrational. Just read what you like. And if it means that you're reading 5 books at once and you're jumping around and you're getting different things out of the different books, that's great. And if you skip chapters, that's great. It's fine. Who cares? If you're not getting something out of a particular chapter, go into the next chapter. It doesn't matter. And then sometimes you'll find, like recently in the last week, I've read 2 books about business. And I just smashed them out, like just straight through, all the way through. And that's because I found them really engaging and useful to some problems that I'm trying to solve right now. And that's great. And then other times, a lot of the time, I'm reading like 5 or 6 books simultaneously, and I'm just jumping around between them. Yeah, so difficulty, timing, energy levels, and like don't think that you have to finish something just because you've started it. Jack and I have the discipline of finishing books now for the show because we've got this accountability thing with the book club where we force ourselves to finish the book. But if it weren't for that,
I guess accountability is one thing.
If you've got some reason to be accountable, like class, or if you've joined a book club.
Yeah. All right, another disturbingly lucid question from J-Man. Best books for productivity or professional advice? This is probably more a question for you because I don't read very practical books in my own time. I read extremely impractical books in my own time.
Yeah, I have a love-hate relationship with like self-help and productivity books and stuff because I definitely think they can be just an excuse not to actually do stuff. It's like it's pseudo productivity. It's not really productivity. It's like you spent 8 hours reading that book when you could have spent 8 hours like editing the podcast or like building the website or something, So with that caveat, I guess like the thing is like I don't know. It kind of depends where you're at in life, doesn't it? Like, how do I answer that question? It's like generally useful. Look, TBH, like the highest form of productivity is like sorting out your epistemology. So like go and read the beginning of Infinity, like because like then when you go and read any other book, like read the beginning of Infinity and any of Popper's work that you can stomach. In particular, he's got this book called Conjectures and Refutations. If you can read Conjectures and Refutations in the beginning of Infinity and potentially The Fabric of Reality, those 3 books are worth so much more than any productivity or professional advice. They're worth a million times more than any productivity, professional, self-development fucking bullshit books. And why is that? Because they teach you about, you'll actually learn about how we create knowledge. What a good explanation is. Like when I say to Jack, because Jack has read the beginning of Infinity, and he knows, okay, Jack, answer me this. What do I mean by good explanation, and why does it matter that it's hard to vary? I just put Jack on the spot for answering questions about epistemology.
I think if you think about, so that there is a separation between whatever world is external to humans and the particular explanatory models that we use to interface with that world. Probably the better an explanation comes, it asymptotically approaches whatever is exterior to us. Both in terms of how the components of that theory relate to each other internally, so it has internal consistency, but also to what extent it can predict and explain whatever is happening exteriorly. And part of that is the difficulty of varying it, in that if something's a good explanation and difficult to vary, it means that if you take a component of it and just change it, it's going to really, really affect the explanatory power of it. And a way to understand that is by looking at something that's easy to vary. So if you see thunder at night or lightning at night and your explanation is Zeus did it, that's really, really easy to vary because you can change Zeus for saying, oh, well, God did it. So God in the Abrahamic sense. The explanatory power of those 2 models is more or less the same. It just doesn't matter that you've changed the particular god that is causing the lightning. Whereas if you start explaining it in terms of modern meteorology, that's a better explanation because just changing a part of that can dramatically affect how that explanatory model works in the world in terms of what it can predict, which other explanations it can generate by examining that and then trying to extend it. So that's how I understood the difficult to vary component of a good explanation.
Okay, so that's me just asking Jack, and he hasn't. I don't think you've read any Popper yet, but I've recommended a bunch of Popper stuff. Maybe a little bit of Popper.
Yeah.
Like
I've read a handful of essays by him, shorter works, but I've never read a book by him.
So that's just Jack's off the cuff, like based on like a year or two ago reading The Beginning of Infinity, right? Like, okay, so if I ask Jack, say Jack's got some problem to do with business or whatever, and he wants to go and read a business book or a self-help book, with that understanding of epistemology and good explanations, he's going to be able to bullshit detect. When is the self-help? Because there's a lot of bullshit in self-help productivity stuff. You need a well-refined bullshit detector when you're getting into that stuff. There's a lot of bullshit. Point in case, there's this book called The Secret, which is like about the law of attraction, the quote unquote the law of attraction. And there's a bunch of crap like that in the self-help guru space. If you don't have a sense of like critical thinking, and especially like I'd say like an understanding of what a good explanation is, and if I say like correspondence, like what does it mean for a theory to correspond to like the world and all these sorts of things that come out of The Beginning of Infinity, and like similar books about epistemology, basically like your critical thinking skills, you're just going to get wrecked by those self-help authors. Like they're just going to take you for every dollar that they can get out of you, like Tony Robbins and stuff. Those people, you know what the best predictor of
but that guy is so handsome. You do a physiognomy check on him, and you're obliged to believe everything he says. Could someone that handsome lie to you? I don't think so.
I'll give you an example. This past week, I've been reading books about like building businesses, and I started several of them, and out of like the 4 or 5 that I started, I only read 2. And because very quickly I got into one and he just started talking bullshit. And I could tell that it was bullshit. I was like, I don't even need to read any more of this book because you're so full of shit that I just know that like anything else in here is just not even going to be worth like even if there is a nugget of wisdom in here somewhere, it's not worth like wasting my time on this. That comes from having a sense of like epistemology. What's a good explanation? So, okay. If you want anything other than that, other than me saying just go and read David Deutsch's The Beginning of Infinity, any other productivity or professional advice, books for professional productivity or professional advice, there's a really good podcast episode. It's 3.5 hours by Naval Ravikant. Naval Ravikant is a very well-established investor in Silicon Valley. He's invested in things like Twitter and Notion. He started a company called AngelList, which is like this big investing platform for startups to find investors and like early stage employees. He's been very, very influential in Silicon Valley. He created this tweet storm, which is the pinned tweet on his Twitter profile, and it's called How to Get Rich Without Getting Lucky. Now, although it's got a bit of a clickbaity title, it's legitimately a legitimately good source of advice about like building your career. In particular, like he talks about essentially what is what you can think of as like a skill stack. Okay, so skill stack. What are the different things that you can put together in like things that you like doing but are also useful to other people? And there's some skills that are super useful and there's some skills that are not. And you don't want to overthink it because you want to do things that like you're naturally inclined to do, like Jack's naturally inclined towards writing, but also writing is an extremely useful skill economically. Like good writers can make a lot of money and provide a lot of value to the world. So especially like good fiction, like you can, if you solve an important cultural issue, like you could potentially like be very successful as a fiction writer. Speaking good, persuading people, computer programming, like basic arithmetic, depending on what type of maths you like, going and learning about like different types of math. I would say like linear algebra and vector calculus are extremely useful. Okay, why am I bringing up Naval's thing? In particular, he has this point where he says, do what feels like play to you but looks like work to other people. Now, that's got some different components to it. The first is do what feels like play. If it's a feeling, then it's an internal experience, which means that it's what you're subjectively experiencing. And if it feels like play, then it means you're doing it spontaneously you're doing it out of the sheer enjoyment of it. But if it looks like then that's an external experience. That's somebody else from the outside looking in at you. If it looks like work, then that means that the other person, them looking from the outside in, they would have to get paid to do the thing that you're doing, which means it has economic value. So if something feels like play to you but looks like work to others, that's a good heuristic to use as like a guiding light. So like for me, it's like designing interfaces, certain parts of software engineering, and like looking at like cloud infrastructure stuff. There's certain parts of like software engineering that I fucking hate, and I try not to do it. But there's certain parts of software engineering that I really enjoy, but people fucking pay me money to do it, which is great because I could spend all day coding and like somebody will pay me for it. Talking to Jack is fun. To other people, it might look like work. Reading some of these books, doing these sorts of things, like it feels like play. And to the degree that Jack and I can keep this up and keep it feeling like play, but it also being economically like valued by the market, and then we'll end up not sure where we'll end up, but we'll end up in a place where like we're doing things spontaneously because we enjoy them and because we get energy out of them, and also other people like that we're doing them, so they're going to give us money for it. I would say skip pretty much all professional help advice books except for Naval's podcast, which you can find at nav.al/rich, or go to his Twitter profile. Listen to that and then read The Beginning of Infinity. And if you happen to need any other professional advice books, just have like a very high bullshit radar when you're going to read them.
Yeah, there's the benefit of at least one of us reading books that can be directly applied to our lives.
Yeah.
Like, as I'm not sure if
Jack's
how much it comes.
He doesn't need them.
Comes through. It's I think I have a much higher tolerance and appreciation for books that are very remotely applicable to everyday life than Levi. Hence why I think in general I enjoy reading Evola and Spengler, whereas Levi has a hard time. That's the sort of stuff that I read for fun.
I'm pretty mechanical about things at times. I want things to be very applicable. Not always. Like sometimes I read fiction. Going back to an earlier question, there was one book that I wanted to say that has influenced me, or philosopher that has influenced me, that I didn't mention before. Catch-22.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's a really good book.
Is phenomenal book, but it also like there's this scene where it's like he's being asked, like, was it the interrogation scene where it's like, why won't you go out there? Because people are trying to kill me. It's like, no, you have to go and fly the thing. Why don't you want to? No. Don't you get it? There's people trying to kill me out there. It's like, no, it's war. Like, just go and fly the plane. It's like,
yeah, exactly. Yossarian's framing of it as people he doesn't know keep trying to kill him is just so funny.
Yeah, that's war.
Such a great way to view the Second World War.
And I just, for some reason, just the profound absurdity of that book kind of affected the way that I see life as well. It's like the profound absurdity at times is like of the life that we live.
Yeah, well, that's the power of the most effective fiction, where it's different from nonfiction at a surface level in that it's not biographically true. In that Yossarian never existed as a historical figure. He was not fighting in Italy in the Second World War for the United States of America. But as soon as you move below that surface level of unreality, it's true in a much deeper sense.
And yeah, I also like that the absurdity came from just stating the fact. It is the fact that when you go to
people
war, people that you don't know are trying to kill me. And it's like, yeah, that is a pretty pretty strange situation to end up in. Yeah, so I feel that way with life at times. Okay, next question. I've spent way too much time thinking about. Read. That's my recommendation. Naval's Rich podcast / Twitter Storm, The Beginning of Infinity, and Catch-22. Read those. Those are the best professional productivity advice books. and
read As I Lay Dying by William Faulkner. It's probably not directly applicable to your life, but it's very beautiful. That's good.
And another
It's
really
just
good,
a beautiful book.
really good productivity and professional advice book would also be
Atlas Shrugged.
No, legitimately, like go and read Atlas Shrugged as well. Stop being a little bitch. Like this is the thing that I don't this thing I don't get about, like, that's why I like Ayn Rand. She just doesn't give a shit. She's just like, yeah, trains are awesome, like built, like cool architecture is awesome, fucking engineers are awesome. Like, why do we have all these mopey bitches like going around like, oh, the world sucks, like it's so hard, life is hard. It's like, just go and build something. Like, stop whining. Like, bridges don't manifest out of nowhere. It took somebody building the goddamn thing. Like, who needs professional advice when you've got objectivism?
Yeah, this is another difference in the fiction we like, is I just didn't really like Atlas Shrugged. It had its moments, but those moments were buried in like 60-page monologues.
Man's Search for Meaning. That's the other book by Viktor Frankl for productivity and professional advice. I think the thing that you don't want to do, productivity is, okay, man, I've got so much to say about this. One of the things about, so I'm going to first, let me just finish this rant off, Jack. I'm sorry. So there's two things to say. Firstly, don't do things that you find meaningless. Like it'll be much better to like live poor and meaningfully than to become successful and lead a meaningless existence. Preferably, you can end up doing both, being both materially successful and lead a meaningful existence. But preference the meaning. Like, go for the meaning first if you can, to the degree that you can get away from like the economy is extremely big with the internet. You know, okay, think about it like this. When you get your phone, the thing that you're listening to this podcast on right now, that device puts you the same distance away from like 5 billion other people on the planet. It's like, imagine those like markets in like those old Middle Eastern markets, you know, like where we get the word bazaar from. Like, and imagine like somebody who lives in one of the houses coming off the street from the town bazaar, and they're bitching and moaning about, oh, there's no opportunity. Like, what am I supposed to do with my life? I need to find a job, or I need to sell something. And it's like, mate, you live next to the town bazaar. Like, just make a rug. I don't know, take it into the town square, try to sell something. Like, it's like you live next to the bazaar. There's other people coming here from like 30 kilometers away. They're putting stuff on a goat and coming all the way to the bazaar every week to sell some stuff. They're figuring it out. It's like that, except instead of living on the same street as the bazaar where there's like a couple hundred people, on your phone is a supercomputer that puts you in direct contact with 5 billion other people. And there's these platforms with hundreds of millions of people on them that are designed to push your content out to the people that find it interesting. You have absolutely no excuse not to be going out there and doing something with this technology. It's profoundly insane. And like, just go and do something. Preference meaning, but you absolutely, doesn't matter like how little skill that you've got right now. You can find any skills that you want on the internet for free. Khan Academy, Sailor Academy, YouTube, right? It's at your fingertips. If you're listening to this goddamn show, you can listen to like some Khan Academy. You can learn how to program. You can learn how to design stuff. You can learn how to do copywriting or anything. And you can get access to the world's biggest market. The civilization has never seen a market this big. It's enormous. And so that's the first thing. The second thing that you need to also understand about professional advice.
What if you don't have hunter eyes though? Because if you don't have hunter eyes,
then you should get it. First, buy a hammer and smash yourself in the face with the hammer.
Bone smash and get hunter eyes.
The second thing is leverage. Okay, productivity is not a function of the amount of time that you can put in. So it is just a fact that nobody, like Elon Musk to like the poor kid scrabbling around in the slums in like New Delhi. All right, they've got the same amount of time in the day. You can't leverage up your time. That is not how productivity works. You don't become more productive by working more. You literally can't. Like, people, this was a trap that I fell into when I was younger. I thought productivity meant working more or working more like quote unquote efficiently, like doing something like GTD, getting things done, or like organize your Notion into this sort of thing. It's like, no, that doesn't matter. You know what matters? Like getting $10 million and deploying that into like a business, or like getting more machines to do, like scaling your technical infrastructure from 100 machines to 1,000,000 machines. Like our machines, our technology, we can get so much more leverage out of it. I'll give you an example. There's this I think it's called the Hercules crane. That thing can lift something like 150 tons. 150 tons. A single crane can lift like 150 tons. I think it's the strongest crane in the world. It might even be more than that. It might be like, it can lift like the strongest crane in the world. Strongest crane in the world. Okay, the strongest. Oh, the Tyson can lift 20,000 tons. There, that's better. 20,000 tons. That's like a plane. It can lift a plane. Okay, there is no human. The question of like how do you lift more weight is not, if you're actually like, if you're asking that not about like being a bodybuilder, but about like how does a person lift more weight? It isn't by becoming stronger. It is by leveraging up your technology. And when it comes to like
really strong,
you get Big Lenny can lift 20,000 tons. But if you go and get leverage, like this podcast is giving us leverage. It's taking time, but like if it leverages up and leverages up and leverages up, we'll get to the point where like when Jack says, "Hey, buy my book," it won't be to a few dozen people, it'll be to thousands of people. And so it'll take him the same sentence to pimp his book, but it'll be leveraged. So shift your thinking from like how do I become more productive to how do I get more leverage? Go and get you some fucking leverage.
Yeah, get that F Gardner hustle grind set going. Okay, what about this question? That was way too coherent. This. Gay sex as a man but with woman. Thoughts on this strange behaviour? Yeah, look, that just sounds a bit too alien to me, having sex with a woman.
What is sex?
Just not comfortable with that. Prefer just to spend my time with the dudes.
I will have sex with a woman if it's made out of plastic. Is that okay? Is that acceptable? And is it still gay sex? Can it be a woman made out of plastic, but that's got a penis?
Yeah, it's hard to establish the ontological state, the inner state of a plastic doll, which makes it very difficult to know if it's gay sex or gross sex.
Yeah, but if I absolutely had to have sex with a woman, I suppose I could, as long as it's gay sex.
I suppose it would be the one I'm married to.
Yeah, it might be the one that I'm
If
traveling through
necessary.
Indonesia with right now. Maybe. Opinion on the marshmallow problem. Let me see.
If this is, I think this is the experiment where they got a bunch of kids, I'm not sure how old they were, so let's just say like primary school age kids, and put a marshmallow in front of them and said, if you eat the marshmallow now, you just get a marshmallow, and if you wait some amount of time without eating the marshmallow, we'll give you another marshmallow. And apparently it correlated with things like educational attainment later in life, income, etc. Like the kids who were able to wait for the second marshmallow did better in life. I don't know. I haven't thought about it that much. I don't have any strong opinions on it.
I'm extremely skeptical.
I do think the fact that they were feeding them the poison of simple carbs instead of high protein food after sets of heavy threes with back squats upsets me, and I think that's child abuse. And the people who ran the experiment should be sent to prison for that, for being Gaines goblins. As to the psychology of the children, as opposed to the psychologist running the experiment, I'm not so sure.
Yeah, you see, this is a reflexive phenomena, and which means its effect, like the thing that's being studied is like a person, and their cognition can affect the outcomes. So I would like to see that experiment rerun, but say at some point later after doing the original experiment with the children, then teaching the children about the study and what the findings of the study are, and also teaching them about like self-control, and then seeing how knowledge about delayed gratification affects their ability to delay gratification. The reason why I'm skeptical of that is because like there's this almost like in psychology, looking for like a recipe or like like deterministic formula for like, if we can find out these things about a person early in their life, then can we predict where their life will go later on? But it never controls for the fact that people can acquire knowledge, which can change the way that they behave. So if you tell somebody who had an indication of low ability to delay gratification early on, and then you explain to them, hey, this is the way this thing works. This is why delaying gratification is good. This is how your dopamine system works. And then you tested them again to see if that affected their behavior. That would be interesting. But I don't think that psychologists generally think more than like a single layer deep. So I'm not a big fan of psychology as a discipline in general. I'm pretty skeptical of all of those sorts of findings.
It's a discipline where it's very hard to design controlled experiments because the system that you're studying is so incredibly complex, and one that can be aware of the fact that it is being studied.
Yeah, and also it's creative. Like you're studying something that's creative. And so like, I mean, try to predict, okay, so what was, if you took any number of like, say you come up with some battery of tests of like delay gratification, yada, 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 and you applied that to Ted Kaczynski when he was 5 years old, how would you predict that he would have become the Unabomber?
Well, I mean, that was where MK altering him came in handy.
Really helped. That'll really help. Yeah, and you're not even taking into account like, there's just so many issues with those studies. I am so
I'd say I'm sympathetic to psychologists, and I think while there are a lot of terrible studies coming out of psychology, by nature of the fact that it's such a complex field and the object of study is so complex, when you do have well-designed studies, it's particularly impressive because rather than dealing with, say, subatomic particles, which behave in not a wholly predictive way because it's quantum, but a simpler way than a human. So psychologists who can design good experiments are very, very impressive.
Yeah, I would say my other major criticism of psychology as a field, including with regards to the marshmallow problem, is that it's non-explanatory. So often it's behaviorist, which means they're just trying to make correlations between like some input, say like performance on like some test, or like, like timing the amount of time that a kid delays having a marshmallow, and then correlating that to like income when they're older. Like, I mean, just go and read the beginning of Infinity. Like, it falls into the behaviorist and like camp without actually coming up with like an explanation, a hard to vary explanation, and in particular one that takes into account human creativity. I just think that those sorts of things, I'm sympathetic towards them in that I appreciate that they're trying to like understand things. I'm not going to stop people from trying to understand these things, but there always just seems to be really big, like, to me, what seemed like really obvious, like, hey, did you think of the fact that like they're creative and they can change their behavior based on knowledge acquisition? Like that seems like a pretty reasonable thing to ask of a study like that.
Okay. Do you want to answer one more question and then leave the rest of the questions for another episode? This is almost 2 hours in, and we've got so many questions.
Could you imagine if somebody's actually listened to 2 hours of us talking about these things? Far out. Shout out to anybody who's
there's a lot more to come.
This part of the episode. Yeah, I guess we'll get 2 Q&A episodes out of this. Should breast milk be sold in store? Would you drink it? Would you be okay for your wife to sell it? And thoughts on hormone replacement therapy. Wait, let's do both. Let's do those 2 questions.
All right.
Should breast milk be sold
in store? Like, sure, why not?
Yeah, I don't really care.
Like, if someone really wants to buy it, sure.
Would you drink it? Nope.
Nope.
Would you be okay for your wife?
I only drink from non-human mothers.
Yeah.
Give me that cow titty juice.
Yeah. Would I be okay for my wife to sell it?
No, it's mine.
I find it a little bit strange.
That belongs to me.
It's mine.
It's my milk.
Woof. I just find it really strange. And I guess I wouldn't stop her, but presumably it'd also have a child. That's the reason why she's lactating. So I'd be like, why don't you
probably do more with that milk?
Why don't we use that for our child instead of selling it? Like,
yeah, but what if someone pays you more money for it than the child does?
What if somebody pays you more for it than your own infant child? Come on, son!
Like the infant child,
you need to start
fresh
working
out of the womb, just starts screaming at you, and you realize that little piece of shit doesn't have even a cuck buck to their name.
Like, you got to pay your way around here, mate.
I don't accept freeloaders.
Just come out 6 minutes and you're already fucking freeloading off the rest of the family. Go get your own breast milk.
Where's your leverage, mate? Doesn't even have a software wallet, let alone a hardware wallet, for paying me with sound money for
his own mother's breast milk. So I'm going to go and I'm going to sell it on
the sheer entitlement.
I'm going to go and sell it on Silk Road.
I'm going to sell that breast milk and show the baby me packing it up in a parcel so that it comes to understand the value of generating money, of generating value and exchanging it for goods.
Welcome to the market, son.
So I'm strongly in favor of it being sold so that children can learn what the real world's like.
Strongly in favor.
None of this fairy tale stuff about a free lunch, about a free breast milk lunch. Nah. I'm not raising any communists.
There's no free lunch. It just comes out of the womb. Child. You just put in free to choose in their hand and say, no free lunch, mate. Start and just put suction cups on the mother's breast. Start pumping it.
Plugging it straight into Amazon for breast milk.
It's like that scene from The Simpsons with all the rat milk.
All right. What about this one? Thoughts on hormone replacement therapy? I personally think that testosterone and estrogen should be sold over the counter, not because I care about trans rights, but mainly so I can experience gender euphoria and reverse all the xenoestrogens in my blood. So this is a real, the heart says yes and the head says no when it comes to selling PEDs over the counter. In that, I like the idea of if someone really wants to inject themselves with synthetic androgens, I mean, the cool ones that let you stack on muscle and get nice hypertrophic organs, get nice organomegaly that women love, get that bubble gut. I like that idea reflexively. In practice, who are the people in society most likely to buy testosterone over the counter? Fucking moron teenagers who have no concept of of themselves 30 seconds in the future, let alone of themselves after all their hair's fallen out. They've gotten bacne, completely shut down their endogenous testosterone production from blasting test at like 5x physiological level. you will definitely fuck up a generation of people. But the aesthetics possible, the societal average of aesthetics would rise quite a lot. In terms of taking estrogen, people can do that. It doesn't get you stacked. Don't know why you do that.
Why you'd want to.
Foreign concept.
Yeah, so I guess we should distinguish between like HRT and like anabolic, like super physiological levels of taking it. And also for
HRT is always just it's a fig leaf for getting stacked.
Like I've recently been taking exogenous testosterone under the guidance of like a doctor. And Jack
Levi did ask for my advice on this.
And he said, don't do it. And I said, well, I'm going to do it anyways. And I mean, it's like the doctor's like, well, try this much. You can stop when you want. You're not going to be super physiological. Like I'm still in the normal range. I don't even know if it's that good, to be honest. Like, I don't know if it's worth the price tag. So
that's because you're not taking enough.
Like, I guess you kind of feel like I've felt like a bit more energy. Like, it's nothing like to write home about.
Your test scripts keep running out a third of the way through. Why is this happening?
Why does this happen? And then the other thing is because it's in Indonesia, like, and it's with an Indonesian doctor. It's like, God forbid, an Australian doctor. Like, I don't think an Australian doctor, unless they're just completely unscrupulous, because there are Australian doctors who will like do that, but you got to find them. You got to go looking. And I don't know if I really give a shit.
I feel like there should be a PSA here. It's like, this is not medical advice. I repeat, not medical advice, but don't take exogenous hormones for the gym. Just don't do it. Male sex hormones affect a lot of things in your body, and if you take a lot of them, you're going to really fuck up a lot of stuff. Just don't do it. It's not worth it.
Yeah, and especially if you're taking like, I mean, some of the doses that people take in like bodybuilding scenes, like even people who are not
just fucked,
who are not like bodybuilders, but they're just like casual gym goers, but they're still just want to get like, yeah. I mean, I guess I'm not going to tell somebody what to do with their own body. I just think it's like, I just wonder whether or not it's really like if it's worth it. Like, you can do a lot of damage at those doses, some of the doses that people do. But yeah, so I'm trying it at a lower dose. I don't know if it's really worth it. I might stop. Yeah, so I'm not against it.
We've kind of gone a bit off topic with the question, but
if you're 50 as well, like, there's a difference between like an 18-year-old doing HRT and a 50-year-old or a 60-year-old or a 70-year-old dude doing HRT. I don't give a shit.
Yeah, there's a world of difference.
Like, if you're like 50 and you
like,
want
ultimately it's your body and you can do what you want with it, but you need to be aware of the downsides. And yeah, like, both male and female sex hormones change a lot in your body. That they have a very, very wide range of tissues that they affect, and there are downsides.
Yeah. And the other thing is, like, should they be sold over the, like, are you legitimately asking me if they should be sold over the counter or probably not. Like, probably
no.
not. Like, probably that's probably bad. I think at the very least having like
I can joke about how funny it would be if everyone was taking exogenous test, but you have so many problems.
Like, at least having a check, like some check there of like forcing the person to see a doctor before they do it or like whatever is probably a good thing, because there's a lot of like, yeah. But then again, like,
there's a reason why YouTube bodybuilders keep dying at age 30.
What's going to happen to Liver King? How long do you reckon he's got left? Like 10 years?
Oh, fuck. Yeah, that.
Apparently he was spending $11,000 a month on his hormone treatment.
So the thing is, the question was just about hormones. The thing is, a lot of people who are taking PEDs effectively for their job, like Liver King's job is in large part to be stacked and to say ridiculous things on social media.
Yeah.
In his case, it's not just the exogenous hormones that he's taking that'll be problems. It'll be other things, like, for example, something like clenbuterol or some other amphetamine derivative to make you lose fat. That is just not good for your heart. It's cardiotoxic. And if you combine that with something like high dose anabolic steroids, which cause cardiomegaly, it's just like it's a real problem. It's just a time bomb.
He'll also be probably taking something like IGF-1, insulin-like growth factor 1. That's pretty common. You might be taking GH.
But some of the stupidest things you hear about are people taking insulin for it.
Yes, so dangerous
for bodybuilding purposes, and that is just like that. You are so close to killing yourself in a matter of seconds if you overshoot. Like,
the other two,
that is one of the stupidest things you can possibly do.
the other two big ones.
I cannot overstate how dumb it is to take insulin for bodybuilding.
Yeah, that's kind of a death sentence. Like, you're really fucking playing with fire.
Like, if you're doing that, you probably deserve to overshoot it and die, like, being that terminally stupid.
Terminally stupid. Yeah, the other big ones are growth hormone and human chorionic gonadotropin, I think is sometimes prescribed. I don't know why. Yeah, I mean, all things come with risks. I once met this woman who's in her 50s who was on GH, and she seemed to be saying that it's like she found it really helped with her like sex drive and like just her energy levels and stuff. I think it probably comes a bit different like once you've had children, like especially for like dudes, like you're playing with fire if you're taking anabolic steroids with your fertility. But if you're like 50, you've already had kids and you don't give a shit, have at it.
Well, I guess so. We need to disaggregate a few things here, because the question was kind of, should it be sold over the counter? And when I'm being if I'm being sensible, no, absolutely not.
If I just want to have fun, yes.
Be able to take it. Like, I think it's your body, and ultimately, you know, if you are really fucking stupid with the things you put in your body and die when you're 31, then it's ultimately it's on you. The people around you also pay a cost, because for example, if you have kids, you've just robbed them of a parent. If you have
because
a partner,
you just wanted to be able to peck dance, so
yeah,
you want to do an peck dance, so you took anabolic steroids in your 30s.
Yeah, but even if you're doing it under medical supervision, you just have to ask why are you doing this? Most of the time, it's because people just want to look musclier, and it's just a really bad reason to do it.
Yeah,
as someone who I love the gym, but it's just not a good reason to do it.
But I told Jack and some of my other friends about me trying it, and that I'll let them know how it goes. It's okay. It's fine. It's nothing. It's no.
Yeah. I don't have experience with the estrogen side of things. At least with the testosterone side, there are things you can do in terms of lifestyle to improve your test levels.
Sleep, food,
which
sex,
are things that just improve your health overall. Yeah. Get enough sleep, eat well, exercise a lot, healthily. Get enough sunlight,
and inject DECA into your ass. That's the other thing that'll be really good for you.
The DECA is just assumed. If you're alive, you're taking DECA.
Cool. All right.
Just really want cartilaginous growth. I want those big, weird ears, giant bulbous nose, and that weird lantern jaw that bodybuilders have. I don't care about the muscles. That's what I'm going for. The weird bodybuilder face. Where I look like Rich Piana.
Yeah, they do have a weird face, don't they?
Rest in peace.
What is that?
King.
Is that like it's messing with their jaw or something? Is that
well, there's a reason why men have much larger and more prominent jawlines than women. Is because the exposure to male sex hormones makes it grow.
Even after puberty?
Which is why women who jump on test, their faces look all fucked up.
It's not because they're more...
their mandible starts getting bigger. And why bodybuilders who've been taking exogenous androgens for years also have really weird looking faces. Because also your cartilage grows. Like your ears get really fucking big and they have that weird nose.
So it's not just because they're getting lower, like they're more like lower body fat percentage. It's actually... And you've also got you've got your jaw muscles, right? Like your masseter and stuff. Like that'll be becoming more developed as well. So you actually think it's actually a bone. It's a bone growth thing. No, because I would have thought that you'd need like open like growth plates and stuff to.
No, the bones grow. So
okay, right.
With growth plates, that's lengthening of long bones particularly.
Right. Yeah.
But you actually do get bone development.
Great. Well, I'm looking forward to having much more alpha jaw and more hunter eyes.
You need to be taking more tests. Just quintuple your dose.
More tests. No, thank you.
Get that warrior skull.
No.
Start looking more and more simian.
Okay, so we've got a bunch. There's still heaps of J-Man questions, but I feel like we'll be able to get a whole second episode of Q&A out of these questions, which is good because maybe we can do a second Q&A after our next after our next Spangler episode. Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Well, if you actually managed to listen to 2 hours of us ranting at questions, congratulations, you get the innate reward of being slightly older than you were 2 hours ago after listening to us. Thanks for listening.
You get that little squirt of dopamine every time we say something funny.
Hopefully it was I like legitimately though, like hopefully some of our answers to some of these questions were like useful. Yeah.
Hopefully we're delivering value.
Hopefully we're delivering value.
I'm all about delivering value.
If we are delivering value, you can help out the show by giving us a 5-star rating on whatever podcast platform you're listening to. That really helps. If you want to get in touch with us,
that would actually be really helpful.
That'd be really helpful. If you want to get in touch with us, the easiest way is by joining our Discord. You can also hit us up on Twitter, but we don't really check that very often. We're definitely on the Discord, so
yeah, pretty bad with Twitter.
Yeah, and you can ask us questions. Also, we have a Patreon as well where you can ask us questions. Yeah, thanks for listening. Anything else, Jack? Next episode?
That's all.
Next episode?
Thanks for listening.
Water of Life or something?
Next episode will either be a continuation of Spengler's first volume of The Decline of the West or something shorter, depending on how much of Spengler we can get through between now and next Sunday.
Yeah, it's turning out to be a lot harder than I was expecting. So
yeah. I've read enough of it that Spengler's logic now makes sense to me, so it's easier, but it's still pretty slow going. So we'll see how we do.
All right. Well, thanks for listening.
All right. Thanks for listening. See ya.